gentle creatures of the night. Welcome back to another episode of the It's Not Always Dark podcast.
Where it is in fact not always dark.
I'm Kieran.
I'm Erin.
And today we're unpacking the cult classic.
The Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit.
The Sweet Transvestite.
From transsexual Transylvania.
It's the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Not to be mistaken with the stage production.
That's right, folks. We're going cinema.
So pack your props.
Fill your water pistols.
And let's do the time warp.
Again. Oh, that whole sequence is so gimpy, and I cannot think of anything more fitting for the two of us.
So, hello, our wonderful, gentle creatures of the night, as you said.
Mm-hmm.
So, the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
What is it? Who is she? Yeah, Erin,
Who is she?
give us a base understanding of what the Rocky Horror Picture Show is for someone that might never have heard of it.
So, it is a movie, a film, that is based on a stage show written by Richard O'Brien.
Love it.
Stage show was like West End, early 1970s,
Right.
73 I think. And then the film came out in 75,
Yeah.
featuring some of the original West End cast, which is so cool.
Yeah, but
we love.
most of them came back for it with some slight changes.
Yeah, I
for
think
good
it
reason.
was 20th Century Fox that were the sort of production house behind it. So I believe they wanted
Yeah.
American actors, hence some cast changes. But
Of course. For the most
it's just
part.
one of those cult classics. It's a musical, comedy, horror mishmash. It's hodgepodge. It's just a bit of everything, really. And in preparation for this podcast, it was actually the first time that I'd seen it, because I've never actually seen it before.
Yeah,
which
you'd
is
heard
it.
of it before, but you'd never actually watched it, which I thought was amazing because, I mean, anyone that's gathered any intel on what Erin is like as a person, I'm sure has picked up on the fact that she's very fond of her musical theatre. She enjoys a good performance, and yet it just hadn't met you on the radar yet.
Yeah, I think, like, I'm now officially, like, in love.
Oh, of course.
It's
We're here doing a podcast on it. I'd hope so.
I don't know, I might have hated it and had some strong
I
opinions.
hate it, and I'm going to get on and talk about it for a full hour.
I'm going to tell you how much I hate it, and in every
I hated it
detail.
so much. It was the worst, everyone. Listen.
I think it really just appealed to the, like, Tim Burton musical part of me. Like,
Yeah, I
I
see that for you.
And then, as I was saying to Kieran, not like before we recorded, like, this is a film that is referenced so much across,
Totally.
like, TV, like, pop culture in general. It's, like, referenced, like, for me, my knowledge of it was pretty much the Glee episode. That was...
That's
like,
very fair, though.
2010 Glee moment really is what I knew of it. And then, like, I saw, like, it's referenced in, like, The Perks of Being a Wallflower and stuff.
Yeah.
And various TV shows as well. So, like, and of course I knew the time warp, because you can't be at a wedding and not know the time warp. That's so
Yeah.
embarrassing. So embarrassing.
So embarrassing. I'd
But-
never show up to a wedding without having learned the full choreography to the Rocky Horror Picture Show. You're right.
It's just one of them. It's just one of those songs.
One of
isn't it?
those songs that appears and you're just expected to know about it, even though no one really explains why you know it.
Yeah, it's like the slosh. Like, no one taught you the slosh, or like
No
5,
one's
6,
taught me
7,
the
8, or
slosh,
anything.
but I kind of know it.
But you just
know?
kind of like hope that there's someone there that really knows
That
it, and you kind of
does.
follow them. Yeah.
Fully commits to the dance and you can copy them. Yeah.
But going on from there, what was your sort of perception of the Rocky Horror Picture Show going into this podcast?
So I had studied it quite a few times for a media class that I was in yeah, we were basically just going over how they'd chosen to film it. And so my knowledge, at least before we were doing the podcast on it, I would say it was more based in just like some factoids that I remembered from the production work
Yeah.
and my general viewing experience of it because we'd watched it quite a few times in a row. And I think it grew on me with each watch the same way that I think it does for anyone that watches it. It's not necessarily on the first watch something you're like, oh my God, like I need to watch that again immediately if you're not already into like musical theater. But as someone who like I like musical theater. It's not my go-to watch by any means, but I do like it. So when I watched this, I remember feeling like the show had a great cast. I remember thinking that just the entire premise of Sweet Transvestite as a performance makes the whole show worth it. Because I
Yeah.
think that song itself is so iconic, especially with the way that Tim Curry does it,
I think,
from both stage to film
yeah,
adaptation.
definitely I agree.
He's a huge selling point for the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
I think that he's done the characterization so well. And
So
it's
well.
so one thing that like upon watching this the first time I was like, oh, because I'm coming from it as a person that would focus on the music, I guess.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, they're not really like singing. That's something
No.
that like very much threw me. And then I kind of got it because it's like they're not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily like it's not music that's about the singing or like the quality of the singing. It's about the character and getting
Mm-hmm. The persona
the
across as
persona
well.
across. And
And the
that's
information.
because then like you have like Meatloaf, like his song in
Totally.
it,
Mm-hmm.
where that's okay, this is like the rock and roll singer. But then Patricia Quinn that plays Magenta does that sort of like really low drawl that's
Mm-hmm.
very like and like so they all have such distinct voices that it's like it's a really cool thing to watch and to see people be part of.
It's an amazing film. There's the reason why it was selected for preservation at like the
Yeah.
US National Film Registry. They want it to stay in history because there's something about it that sort of transcends beyond the failing it had originally upon release. Because it not a major not a major box office hit, definitely a grower, and
Yeah.
grew to be what it is now, which is, I mean, pre-COVID, it was the longest running film release in America. I'm
Yeah.
sure some places probably still been showing it.
So speaking of it being a grower and
Yeah.
something that developed a tradition, we've sort of thrown that about and not actually said.
Yes, sorry.
So basically, it sort of coined the term midnight movie. I think it was probably considered to be one of the original midnight movies,
Yeah, I'd say
where
so.
it was getting late night showings, particularly like around like New York. I think is where it really was began, and there it popped up across America.
Yeah.
But people would go and see this film because it would show weekly
Yeah.
at midnight or whatever, and people would go and see it, and they would start dressing up as
Yep.
the characters and interacting with the film, which is something
Yeah.
that you like. I think it's the closest the Americans have to panto, right?
Yeah, it really everything seems to come back to Panto when it's us talking about it. But yeah, I will say that it's their experience of Panto, maybe a bit more interactive than what we would go with.
Yeah,
Especially the water pistols and stuff. But
it's more. It's definitely like a super Americanized thing. Like we would very politely say, "He's behind you."
he's behind you, sir. They're like, here's a gun. Well,
We're like, rootin' tootin'.
right into it.
So basically,
No.
it's got to the point where like they'll now have like entire shadow casts perform the show, like mimicking and lip syncing and doing all the bits on a stage in front of the screen. But then also the cinema goers be carrying their bags of props, all the stuff.
They do.
They've got their newspapers, their water pistols, they've got their wedding confetti, party hats.
Of course.
I mean, I think people were carrying like candles and stuff as well, but I don't know how like fire safe that is. So maybe just like use your flashlight.
Maybe don't carry your own candle.
Maybe like let's not have naked flames in public spaces. But,
Yeah. Just a thought.
But that like I'm so excited to finally do that when we can. I feel like we need to experience it.
We need to go to. I'd love to go to a stage performance. I feel like it's one of those experiences that you just kind of have to get on the bucket list.
Yeah,
and be like,
something
but
that,
I've done this.
Like something that has come up a lot in like the research. I say research, like me watching some YouTube videos and calling it research. But
I mean, no. We just have different methods of researching these days. And that brings up an interesting point that I think I often think about for this podcast. And this is totally one of those things where this could be a tangent, so hear me out. But generally speaking, the ways of research have changed and updated, so it is a bit easier to do research into stuff because the information is available to us.
Yeah, the way that information is communicated has changed, and thus therefore the way that we consume that information
and then relay it out in this podcast, for example. You know, oftentimes we're just relaying information that we have a general understanding of, that we've worked up on a bit more, so we have more content to talk about. And I think that even by saying, oh, I've done research on YouTube, you've still done research. You should be proud of the fact that you even looked up something. I didn't just come on here ready to try and bullshit your way through something. I think any effort's commendable to me.
Me patting my back.
These days,
round of
look,
applause.
it's been a hard, like, what, 2 and a bit years now?
Yeah.
It feels like it gets harder every other day, so
It's been a hard life.
Oh, it really has
frankly.
been. But it's just nice to acknowledge what hard work has been put in, even if it's something as simple as watching a YouTube video about it for more knowledge. So, props to you, Erin.
As to you, my dear.
Thank you so much. Okay.
So as I was saying,
Yes.
in my thorough research that I have been doing,
Yes.
a phrase that just keeps coming up is like, this is one of those coming of age films that for a lot of people it sort of is that like a sexual awakening film.
Very much so.
I can't imagine, because obviously I'm now like 22 watching it, but I think for someone that was in high school
Back
that
then.
probably would have been something that was like,
Huge. It would have been a huge thing to make someone feel comfortable with their sexuality, or even just liking something slightly different than the norm. There's a reason.
I just think like baseline, just like sex or pleasure. Like it's very
It really gets into it. I think that there's a reason why Brad and Janet are the main characters that we follow around for a good amount of this film, and that's because, you know, they are the classic like white picket fence type Americans. They are very goody two shoes, and going through this whole sexual awakening of their own. It completely parallels people of similar ages, because, you know, Susan Sarandon playing Janet, she was not going through her first sexual awakening at that age. I'm sure she was. No, I don't know anything about her life, but
I don't know her story.
Yeah, I don't know her story. I mean, she's a gorgeous person, so I doubt that it took until Rocky Horror filming for her to have a sexual experience. That was my point.
Yeah.
But with that being said, it's like the people watching this would have been like a hot and heavy under the sheets type thing to see, because it's so, even these days, I'd say it's still, you know,
but then
Rocky's in full underwear and nothing else.
But then I would say is that it's not I want to word this correctly because it is a
I
sexual
know.
film. It is
Yeah,
like but it's not to the extent. I think
sex isn't the main selling
it's
point, I
not.
would
It's
say.
not as much as it's like one of the things that it's about. I don't really think it's about being open to like
Hmm.
like you're not showing anyone banging is what I'm
No,
trying to
yeah.
say. Like
To just to come out with it, yeah, no one's fucking on the screen, Erin.
like it's not a porn thing. It's
It's not.
no.
We
Did you
must have
not?
watched. No, we watched different ones.
You
I have
said the
different
wrong link
notes here.
clearly. Yeah,
So
but
yeah, no, it's not. It's not straight up porn. It's just it covers
it's very
sexuality, and
suggestive.
coming of age is a very great way to word it because it's exactly that. It's getting to that age where sex is a thing that you think of, and it explores the topic well.
And yeah, it's definitely it's tongue in cheek and people
Hmm.
are I mean, I think I just love that all the characters are free to be their completely flamboyant selves.
Totally.
And it's
Even
not like tied to their like sexuality inherently.
yeah.
Like it's not
No. There's nothing about it that openly is like, and I'm this marginalized group of society, and I'm this label. It's just we are quite literally in a mansion being ourselves.
we are a
Enjoy.
group of and then like the ensemble are like the referred to as the Transylvanians, which I also think is hysterical. Like I don't know
Very
why I
funny.
find that so funny. It
I
just
think it's
is.
just the word Transylvania. There's something about the Vania that really gets me.
I mean, and
It's the Vania for me.
it's the mania for me. But also just like thinking of that the sweet transvestite scene where he has the cape on, very vampire
Yeah.
vibes. We knew like they knew
Very
what they were
vampire.
doing.
Yeah,
Like
there's
the pointy
parallels.
collar, it's so oh lovely. Um, but yeah, so it's very much hodgepodge of sexual preference. Also, gender identity is a big.
Yeah.
I say
But
it's a big
then
thing. It's actually not really discussed
I
very much
think
throughout it
the
at
way that
all.
Tim Curry describes the role of Frankenfurter is that if you go about the role and you like approach it as though it's like drag, you're not doing the role correctly.
Yeah.
Because it's not a drag performance. The transvestite stuff, like his character, sh- she's not working at Mickey's on a Sunday, pulling up
No,
by no means. But
we're
with
not doing
that being said,
brunch.
yeah, she's not doing the drag brunch, but it's still a performance that this is clearly something that at the time I couldn't imagine what it would have been like when it first came out for someone to be seen like that on film. Because
Well,
I mean, just like a couple of decades prior with Psycho, Norman Bates dresses up as his mother, and that was something that almost got the film like flagged. They were like, we don't want to show a man dressed in women's clothing. That's illegal.
well, that was. I'm
So,
sure one of the things that I read was something. It was only like 2 years before Rocky was released that the it was like decided by the health boards in America that being being gay wasn't a mental health thing. It wasn't like a
yeah.
mental illness. And it's like that's wild that like 2 years after
Only
that,
2 years after.
like I mean to be fair it was partially British cast and whatever, but it's you know, it was for the it's made by American producers and stuff. I think it
Yeah,
was
it was
like
targeted at Americans too.
should we maybe just like have a little adventure through the plot
Yeah, I
together?
think
Let's
so.
just like experience it together because I think there's going to
Okay.
be moments that come up that we find mutually funny
Okay,
and
okay, okay.
interesting. So we open on, as we've said, Brad and Janet. Brad
Brad and
being
Janet,
played by Barry
Barry
Bostwick.
Bostwick, who he won a Tony and he was chosen over Steve Martin, who made it, I think, very far along in the casting process. But it was just, I think, that Bostwick had a Tony And when you're doing a musical adaptation, I think you do want someone who's been given like the highest form of praise in musicals.
Accolade. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it makes sense that he did get chosen over Steve Martin.
Yeah.
But yes, we open with Brad and Janet, who have just found themselves, lost
At a
on a
wedding.
stormy night.
Well, yeah. So I was gonna say, so we open on a wedding.
Oh, okay.
Which is like sort of like I think it's quite worth mentioning because
Okay.
it's sort of like it establishes the sort of peak heteronormative world that they are part of. Like,
True.
they've just come out
true.
of a wedding and Brad's just kind of like, well, maybe I should propose because this is what I ought to do.
Yeah, we went to a wedding, so should we get married now?
And they're very like all American dream couple, as you were saying, the picket fence, like
They're very
completely-
prudish.
yeah, that's the word. We really. I was like, what is the word?
What's
Like-
the word to describe these two? Yeah, they're very prudish, and overall, I would just say that Brad and Janet, they're just meant to be a bland couple. Mm-hmm. But like, they're like a coloring book that no one's put any color into yet. You know
And
what
I
it
think
is.
they're just the absolute opposite of what they end up going into, and that's what makes the film, I think. So
Yes.
they then are going to visit a doctor friend, or their friend. What one is it? Dr. Scott is their friend,
Dr.
right?
Scott, yes.
So they're like, oh, let's go visit him.
Yeah, let's
They're
go.
driving through a rainstorm. Oh no.
We've
the
got
car
a flat
breaks down.
tire. Oh,
But off in the
no.
distance, they see this light. So they're traveling. She's got a newspaper over her head. Cue
Yeah,
the
you know.
props.
Cue the
It's
props.
raining. Cue the water pistols. Like, get involved, everyone. So they
Yes.
they end up seeing this castle mansion
This
moment
lovely little castle. Nothing
off
major,
in the
just a little one.
distance. And they say, there is a light. We must walk towards it. And so they do. They are greeted at the door by the one and only Riff Raff.
Riff Raff.
Um,
He always makes me
a
think
personal
of
favourite. Yeah.
I was gonna say, he makes me think of that rapper. What's his face? Is his name Riff Raff as well?
You're asking the wrong gal, honestly.
He's a guy that has like, he quite literally got his own teeth like carved into the shape of like shark teeth.
Oh, I
So
hate
he-
it.
Yeah, I know. I don't like any sort of teeth modification myself, but I need 1 second. I need to know.
No,
the
I can see his
shark.
face. Like, I know who you mean now that you've said the shark teeth, and I can see it, and I'm deeply uncomfortable.
No, yeah, his name is Riff Raff. He is a hip hop
Oh.
EDM trap rapper.
Well, maybe he was just really into the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Maybe
Maybe
he was
he's telling
born
us,
82, so
He just
could have
said,
been inspired.
Hunchback Candyman, c'est moi.
C'est moi. Oh, c'est moi.
That's how all rappers think in my head, clearly.
Yeah, they see the one person and go, oh, c'est moi.
C'est moi. That would be such a funny YouTube video, just like a rapper's inner monologue, but it's me.
C'est moi. Oh yeah, like we really go in and get someone. I'm trying to think of like a really good rapper to get, but all of them are dead in my mind. The ones that I think are the most iconic.
I don't know. I mean, I'm not. But even if
and
we
like
got,
Biggie Smalls is mine.
but
you
even if it was
Tupac.
like Nicki Minaj, but it's me,
Oh, I'd love the Nicki Minaj one.
that would be so funny.
We should honestly just get you to voice over like the Nicki Minaj moments. Oh, we gotta go.
You know what? No, I am gonna leave.
I am gonna leave.
She's a mammoth.
Yes. So
So
she's a mammoth. Yeah, no, so going back to Rocky Horror. Yes.
They're
at the
greeted by
door,
Riff
they're met
Raff.
by Riff Raff, who is a
played by
lovely
Richard
little...
O'Brien,
Yes.
writer director. Not director, that's a lie, just a writer. Sorry, I was giving him
Just
too much
writer.
credit there.
Sorry, you're not that qualified, Richard.
Saws Richie,
Sauce Richie Poo.
Saws Dick.
Sauce Dick. Yeah, so they're met at the door by Riff Raff, who then eventually leads them indoors.
And Magenta, a
Of
domestic.
course.
And her, I
Love
love,
Magenta.
it's like the sexy maid costume combo with the sort of like, the hair that's so blown out.
Yes. And then
It's so
also we
funny.
can't forget the groupie, Columbia.
Yes, Miss Columbia, like, the way that I view her is like Luna Lovegood meets just like
Cookie Ant.
circus performer.
Yeah,
Like,
there's something I get the vibe where you're going with for the Luna Lovegood stuff. It's like that slightly good girl vibe, but then
good
yeah.
girl gone wrong. Good girl. It's very whimsical. It's sparkly. She's got that sort of squeaky voice. Again, iconic voicing from Little Nell, as she's credited.
Little Neil.
Little Nell. And Brad's just like, "Can I use your phone?" And they're like,
Yeah,
"Let's
like,
do the time
please.
warp."
They're like, come on, Brad, do the time warp with us because we've done it already tonight, but we want to do it again.
So we get the time warp, and it's full fat, and it's everything you. It's a sort of gothic house vibe, and that not houses in house music, like as in the building, a house.
Doons, doons, doons. That's my interpretation of house.
Accurate, I believe.
We
You can
wouldn't
take
know.
that one to the bank. No, we wouldn't.
You can take that one to the bank.
And you can take that one to the bank. So they do the time warp. It's fantastic. It's showbiz. It's jazz hands. Like, I would say all the musical numbers leading up to that. I think, to be fair, I think we've had the opening sequence with the lips.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sad that they couldn't. Originally, for the production, they'd wanted it to be black and white all the way leading up to Frankenfurter's lips being the first thing in color, but that was not viable for the time. So they
So
didn't
do you mean
that.
like it would be black and white until like he comes in to do Sweet Transvestite?
Yes, like the
Okay.
entire thing was meant to stay black and white because it was meant to represent Janet and Brad's
How
bland
boring they are.
existence.
Yeah.
Their whole existence is black and white until some color, some spice was added. into the mix.
Until just like a bisexual alien enters the
Yeah,
chat.
a bisexual alien transvestite appears.
We love. So they do the time warp, and then as we've spoiled,
Yeah, well, if you're again,
Uh-huh.
anything, if you ever listen to a podcast of ours and think that you're not going to be completely spoiled on what we're talking about, that's on you, boo.
that's on you. So, Dr. Frank Enfurter enters.
I love the name. Any type of name that's a pun on something that exists, I just always have time for it. Even it's like Riff Raff. Like you're a troublemaker. You're Riff Raff.
I hear Riff Raff, and I just think of that song in Aladdin. It's like
Oh, which
Riff
one?
Raff.
Oh, I see.
One jump. Like, we can't even get copyrighted because I don't know enough words.
When you are your own copyright protection. You can't sue me. I don't know your content. Yeah, no, but Frankenfurter, what a fucking funny name. I
mean,
love it.
What an incredible
Also, it's a
character.
sausage, and the character clearly just doesn't give a fuck about their gender. And I think there's something so funny about being named after a sausage, but also presenting as like kind of female. It's awesome.
But it isn't like you were saying before, like it's not drag in that he's not
No.
necessarily even it's not
He's a
necessarily
transvesite.
female
No, he's
presenting. It's
he's
like
male.
it's
presenting
feminine.
as feminine, yeah.
Yeah, and it's
It's lingerie. It's a
lingerie.
little sexy. Just get
It's
into it.
it's the pearl necklace for me.
It's the pearl necklace.
And the
I
dark
really do
lipstick.
think it adds. I
And,
mean,
like,
so
the
fun
makeup is so
fact.
iconic.
Well, the makeup was done. 1 second. I have a really good fact on this.
Oh, we're getting the detailed notes, the facts.
The notes are coming out for this one. So, Pierre LaRoche, who is a makeup artist who did such looks for Mick Jagger, and also he's the person behind the Ziggy Stardust face paint.
So punk rock
He
slash.
created the Frankenfurter look.
It's
However,
very like I guess that glam rock vibe.
totally. He created the look. However, he was taking that long trying to come up with a face that Tim Curry himself actually just did his own makeup. So
I love
even
that.
though he was employed and has done such iconic makeup in the past, he didn't do all of the makeup for the character because he was taking too long.
I think that's so in character of Tim Curry though. Like for the cause it's there's something very Frankenfurter about that because it's the character is so self-absorbed, not
Yeah.
self-absorbed.
No, yeah, I mean,
Yeah, it's
self
very
motive. They're on their
it's
own journey.
very in terms of like the hierarchy and like who like Frankenfurter is the one that commands the room. Like
Yeah, yeah. He captures your attention
is
first.
very like the has it, I think it's a regal vibe that I get. It's very
Yeah, there's something
an
about it
air
that
of
almost feels
importance
regal.
that
Yeah,
like radiates from him. And I love the thought of Tim Curry just being like, well, we just need to get going. So
yeah. So I'm gonna do my own makeup now. Thank you for coming, though.
thank you for showing up. But
Thank you
no.
so much for showing up. That's a no.
And then of course, so we get the musical number.
Oh, to Sweet Transvestite. What? Like, I can't say enough about that performance. I think there's just something about. I mean, who doesn't love the Antissa and then huge pause, patient? Like,
Patient.
there's something about the drawl when
It's the
he's singing.
voice. Oh.
It's just a very, very good performance, and
Because like trying to pin down the accent as well was
yeah,
really like because I was like there's
he's meant to
a
be doing a Transylvanian accent.
because one of the things that I watched was like him talking and like they tried like a sort of German accent at points I think and like a lot had been tried out and then like he landed on this voice.
Yeah,
It's like a he refers to it as a sort of matron like a London matron. Which I
yeah.
think's hysterical. And it, like all I can think about is the Scottish matron in Wild Child.
Oh, I know the one you're talking about. That what a reference to be pulling out here, I love that movie.
I've watched it recently, and I think that's why
I'm
because
glad it's stuck.
there was almost like because I was convinced after watching it, like I was during the film googling trying to work out where Tim Curry was from because it sounded almost Scottish to me. Like there was a Scottish
Yeah.
twang. But then I think he maybe studied at Glasgow or like spent some time in Glasgow at some point. So
Oh,
that's
I
maybe.
see.
But then like it's not in his speaking voice at all because his speaking voice is very English. So I just the actual Frankenfurter voice was it's just so I guess to match the character it can't quite be pinpointed down to anything. Very
No,
interesting.
no, I agree with you. I think that the accent being a little bit of a few things makes it so unique to his performance.
And then obviously the lab as well is so like it is just a pink room, but it
Yes.
feels so much more glamorous.
Yeah, it feels grand.
It does. I think
I love the way
the
they
high
designed it.
ceiling. Yeah.
Also, all masked up. Is there's
Ahead of
something
its
weird to
time.
me? Yeah, there's something weird about watching films so far in the past that are like using apparatus such as face masks, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, little did we know.
No, I think it was. I was rewatching a clip, and it was when they take the mask off of Rocky, and it just made me. What is it? There was a thing, and it was a TikTok house in the UK where they all had like head mask reveals like that, and I was like,
Oh,
but theirs were like sparkly diamond ones. It's these like really rich teenagers.
Oh wow.
And like they were revealing the members of this house, this TikTok house, by taking off this mask. And I was just
Not
I was watching it, I was
TikTok
like,
guys.
oh, well maybe there is some like artistic direction and they were inspired by the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
I'd, I'd love to give them that much credit, but there's something in my head that's telling me maybe the TikTok famous people revealing a housemate. Maybe they're not Rocky Horror
Oh,
obsessed.
I mean, me seeing things that aren't there.
I know I love that you try and make the connection because I think that's logical.
I think
But
that's just like the Nat 5 English. Just
the
kicks
Nat
in
5 English
sometimes.
is showing. It's showing hard. Either way, back to the story. So, I mean, the lab itself, yeah, we're shown Rocky being brought to life, and
It
we're
definitely
doing. It's very Frankenstein,
it very
and the monster.
reminded me. I get like I was saying to you, the whole film. I was just sort of watching it like, oh, that's where this comes from in terms of
Yeah.
like films that we grew up with. I'm like, oh, they're referencing this film. That's what they're doing. This is where it comes from, and it gave me very not to bring it up again on the podcast, but the Tim Burton Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
I love it.
The whole, to be fair, the Frankenfurter to Willy Wonka connection, I think, is there.
It's there. They're
Quite
both
frankly.
kind of on that side of things. I don't know how to describe it, but they're both sitting at the same table.
Yeah. But then what I was gonna say was the Mike TV room, like the big white room,
That's the lab.
is I was like, oh, it's the lab.
Oh, 100%. Like, that'll be, I'm sure it's another one of those really obscure references that might not have even been discussed by the director of the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory film.
Yeah.
But I can totally see that being like a reference. And some of these things are just, you'll take in a reference without knowing where you've gotten it from, just because it was really iconic in that one thing you saw. And I feel like the lab itself, like, if I had seen that, and I was then doing a production that involved some type of a lab, my basis would be the Rocky Horror
Yeah.
Picture Show lab. So
Even subconsciously. Yeah.
yeah, you go with what you remember most vividly, and I feel like it is very memorable, especially
Yeah.
because we do multiple performances in the room.
Yeah, it gets a lot of use.
Oh yes, they were like, "Oh, we booked the stage for Monday to Wednesday, so we're gonna get our time."
So, as we said, moving forward with the plot,
Yes,
we have the birth of a birth,
kind of birth.
the creation of the
Yeah.
creation. The title character, Rocky Horror.
It's funny that such a role makes it seem as though everything's going to be about Rocky in this, and it's
Yeah.
not. He's
Who's
a very
just this,
minor part.
So it's basically this is the creation of Frankenfurter.
Yes. The second creation.
The second, well, of course, yes. So it's basically like he like believes he's found the secret of life, the key to life, and creating it. Thus, he has
Yes.
created, basically like a sex object. That's what it's meant to be.
Yeah. No, there's no going about it in like a very
And it's
funny
just
way.
a very,
It's a sex object.
It's a very Aryan, muscular man in tiny,
Yeah.
tiny, tiny white shorts. Not white, gold shorts.
Gold shorts, yeah.
Which,
I mean,
like, the only reason I was vaguely aware of this character, because, I mean, it isn't, as much as he's the title character, it's not really what it's all about.
no.
But I just remember, like, in the Glee episode, Sam doesn't want to wear the tiny
Yeah, the
shorts.
shorts.
Because he's insecure, so he wears, like, like a gold shirt as well. So funny.
I like that on the TV show they also just talk about the fact that, I mean, in the original film, it was just an underwear model who'd been dubbed over when he was singing.
Yeah.
So for them to kind of, take it from that point where it's just, here's an underwear model that we've decided to put in a film, to, oh, this character doesn't necessarily want to be in their underwear. They just want to be part of the performance. And
Yeah.
this role doesn't by any means need like an underwear model, you know?
No, like, well, that's it. I think it's so iconic that even just having the person playing
Goal.
Rocky wearing gold
Yeah. You're already doing what you need to do.
does the job.
Agreed.
And we have, I mean, just assume that musical numbers are happening throughout this all.
Yeah,
But,
all of it, yeah.
I mean, what even happened? Like, they go, is that when they go off into the honeymoon suite? I'm trying to remember the order.
I mean,
Or does Eddie happen first?
I think Eddie happens first, if I'm not mistaken, because he like comes out of the deep freeze on the motorcycle.
Yeah, so
And
this
does
is
that
like
whole thing.
pre-famous Meatloaf, right? Comes out of the deep freeze on his motorcycle.
Ready to seduce Columbia.
Columbia's there, she's loving it. She's loving him.
She's having a great time.
They just really... He has like not a ballad, that's a complete lie. He does his Meatloaf thing.
If
Sings
you've
a
ever
song.
if you've heard Meatloaf sing before, you know what's going on here.
Yeah, like... I mean, I would recommend going and listening to Meatloaf because it is quite...
Yeah.
There are some, like, just iconic tunes that you probably should know. But, then we have a bit of a... what we're calling a mercy killing, apparently.
Apparently, yeah. I mean, Rocky started to dance along with what Eddie was doing, and that sent Frankenfurter over the edge because he was like, no.
He was in a jealous rage.
Yeah, he was very upset, so he decides to kill Eddie, his first creation, a delivery boy in the past.
Yeah, oh my goodness, that's what he was.
Just minor details.
But I think that's like the most like obvious reference we get to like a traditional horror film.
Yeah, just the straight up snap and murder.
Just like the axe.
The bend and snap, if you will. Bend and snap.
Bend and snap. Oh.
So yeah, then we go off to, Brad and Janet are shown their separate rooms.
Yeah, Brad and Janet
each
are
of
just like
which-
very overwhelmed this whole time.
Yeah, I mean, a lot's happened, so I
Yeah.
can understand that maybe they would be a bit overwhelmed after watching a man get murdered.
So, as we're saying, Brad and Janet were taken to separate bedrooms.
Yep. Each of which is visited later on the evening by Frankenfurter, who goes to seduce them. However, he's able to pose as them. This is
It
one
is
of
a
those.
bit weird.
It's a bit strange.
It wouldn't. I don't think it would fly now
Maybe not. Yeah.
if it was being
But-
released now. But that's the same with a lot of stuff. Like we can't really hold things to today's standards. Like
But yeah, Janet, she gets quite upset and she wanders off trying to look for Brad, but she ends up discovering Frankenfurter in bed with Brad, which leads her to act a little bit wildly herself. And so, who does she become into it with? None other than Rocky. Thus
honestly,
bringing us
go
into
Janet. Like
honestly, good for her. Yeah, like if he's a little brain dead, that's okay. You can work through that. But yeah, we get our lovely performance to Creature of the Night, which, again, another one of those songs that
Yeah.
I'll never forget how it sounds. It's
I think
so
just like the
catchy.
absolute piercing touch me.
touch me, yeah.
Like it's really like in an octave. It's like borderline unpleasant, but because it's catchy,
Borderline.
they get away with it. Like I
Yeah.
think that's. Do you know what? Describe the music of this film. Borderline unpleasant, but it's really catchy.
The plot itself, borderline unpleasant, but memorable and enjoyable.
So yeah, so Brad's he was like into the moment with Frankenfurter. He sat there, he's like wearing his robe.
Yes.
We end up back in the lab. No, we don't.
Well, we next
We go for
major-
dinner.
Well, yeah, the next major part that happens is Dr. Scott comes looking for his nephew. And,
Eddie.
yeah, he's looking for Eddie, who is in fact his nephew before he was a little creation of sorts for Frankenfurter. But, yeah, Dr. Scott's been investigating for UFOs for the government, just
As
your
you do.
average job. And, like, yeah, I'm always looking for UFOs myself. Um, and Frank thinks that Janet and Brad are working with Dr. Scott as like little spies, and it starts to send him a little bit crazier because he thinks he's being spied on by the government when he is in fact big old alien and they're looking for aliens.
Yeah, so that like I'm just to like clear up the plot twist at the end. I know not much of a plot twist. They're quite upfront about it the whole time. But
Yeah.
like Frankenfurter is an alien,
Yep.
as is Riff Raff and Magenta. They're here from planet Transylvania. Frank's not happy about being investigated. He finds it a bit sus.
Yeah. I mean, when they're having dinner, they start to realize that what they're eating is in fact Eddie's
Eddie.
mutilated
That's such a funny scene,
parts.
though. Like,
Very funny. Hate to
like
be there.
Frankenfurter just like sitting there being like, well, that's a bit of a tender subject as he cuts the meat. Like, it's so, like, oh, I
Comedic.
love it. It's
There's
funny.
comedic time into it all.
It's funny. Um, and then, yeah, everyone is, I think, understandably outraged. We have
Yeah.
then Wise Up Janet Weiss. Where, like, honestly, one of the scarier parts of the film, in my opinion, I think just because my worst nightmare is to be chased.
Yeah.
Alongside,
it.
like, crisp texture. It's like crisp texture, followed up swiftly
If
by
like a
being
crisp was
chased.
chasing you,
Like nightmare on nightmare squared.
your biggest like fear is like a what's it chasing you down with all of that like excess powder.
Like my back just like tingled.
What's happening, Erin?
So Frank is like chasing Janet around the house.
Yes.
Singing, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, do you not sing when you chase random white women around your home?
Well, that's just my like go-to, but I feel like for the general public, that's maybe not.
Yeah, maybe not everyone's.
We end up back in the lab
Yes.
where we get, well, the characters get Medusa'd.
Medusa. You've just been Medusa.
They turn
But
to
yeah,
stone.
they're frozen.
Yeah. Oh, but yeah. So they are all statuesque. Mr. Frank dresses them up. They come back to life and perform in a theatre. Very meta.
Very meta.
Honestly, one of my favourite parts of the film is that sort of end sequence where they're like coming back to life. And I think I love it so much because it's not good. Like, because there's then
It's just not good.
no, like the dancing
Yeah.
is not good and they're not in sync and
No,
no
it's
one's really doing
intentional.
it right. But it's
Yeah.
incredible because of that. Like, I think that's what makes it, like, because everyone's now in lingerie.
Yes.
All the characters are now in lingerie, bar Dr. Scott. I think he's just in his
Yeah, I
suit
don't
top.
remember.
I think they took his trousers off but kept the suit top
Props.
on. So they come back to life. We have the pool scene. Don't dream it, be it.
Don't dream it. Just be it.
And it's like suggestive of an orgy.
Yeah.
With everyone is still clothed. There's a lot of face paint happening. And then they get out the pool and finish the musical number, well, a different musical number.
But then eventually it gets to the stage where they're interrupted by Riff Raff and Magenta, who reveal themselves, and also Frank at this point, yes, to be aliens from the planet Transsexual in the galaxy of Transylvania. There's like a whole...
Full
"You're
alien
unfit."
chic.
Yeah, they're like, you're unfit, you failed your mission, so they kill Columbia and Frank. This is Riff Raff and Magenta. And then they release everyone Brad, Janet, Dr. Scott, and they depart by lifting off in the castle itself with some amazing special effects.
Very Age of Ultron.
Very. I mean, I would be a bit nervous because this is the cutting edge technology that I would be scared of being shown up by. Cardboard.
Oh, I mean, it's just them being amongst the smoke at the end of the film.
Yes.
Just like, and like, it's very that SNL Halloween sketch. Like, cut to them with the makeup all over their face. Like
just 2 hours after.
just 2 hours later, like, kicking about, like, what happened? Like, in lingerie.
Imagine how cold you would be because they filmed this in England and
Yeah.
they did it during the months of October and December. Ouch. That would have been freezing.
I know, and they definitely, like, the budget of the film suggests that they weren't paid.
Yeah, Susan Sarandon got the flu because it was that cold. That's what I wanted to say.
I love
Me
that for
being
me.
specific with the fact check and like, did she get the cold or the flu? A fever?
She got ill, basically.
She was ill.
Poor baby.
What a shame.
But she got on with it. She made it into other films. She's fine.
Yeah. Oh no, she is fine. And she made it in this film. Huge success.
Huge success. This film, I mean, I think the ending just suits the out of this world nature of the film, if you will.
Yeah.
It's very, of course, aliens. Like, I think
Yeah.
that was like when I messaged you after it, I was just like, and of course, aliens.
And of course aliens, yeah.
Like, I'm an alien, duh.
I'm an alien. Duh. Duh.
So as a first time watcher, I very much enjoyed. Cannot
I'm
wait
so happy to hear it.
to go and
Watch
I
an
want
actual
I want to
performance.
experience it. Like, I
I
want to
think
like
they're coming
go to-
to our plate. Like, I think they're in Edinburgh this year.
well, normally like places, because it's kind of deemed a Halloween film. I think
Yeah, they do a Halloween event of it.
we'll hopefully get to go to like some sort of Halloween event, and we can
That'd
take
be
our
very
props
cute.
and
Oh,
have a hoot and a half.
a hoot and a hollow.
But yeah, so this has been a little dive
It's a little
into
journey.
a cult classic. Some thoughts, some feelings, some opinions.
A good amount of retelling.
Yeah, retelling, but with some zazz.
Yeah, we like to add our own perspective on the story, and I think that's what people like to listen to.
And I think it's important to talk about films like this as well, because it is so so important to culture in general. Like, it's not
Yeah.
even like it's just like a queer culture thing. Like, because as
No,
much as it
it's-
is like a queer film, I would say that
Yeah.
it's as much about opening up a conversation about sex for anyone. Like, obviously you've
Yeah.
got like Brad and Janet, like
I'd say other than Frankenfurter being an eccentric bisexual transvestite, that's as close as it gets to being like a queer film. I think
Yeah.
it's part of queer culture because we recognize the theme of generally, the coming of age of your sexuality, embracing your sexuality for what it is. And I think that that's the only real aspect that we take for the culture. And then the rest, yeah, it is a discovery of sexuality for anyone, not just queer people.
yeah, and it's all to a banging soundtrack.
A banging soundtrack. I mean, look, there's a reason we did the Time Warp again before we knew what it was before.
Yeah, again and
It's-
again and again.
It's a great soundtrack, and I don't think they need us to say that for it to be true.
So to just like wrap this up, we would definitely recommend a watch of this. Have you?
Completely.
And even if you've just listened to this whole podcast and we've spoiled it for you, watch it anyway.
So, yeah, do it
Because
anyway.
that's-
I know people
that's
that
not-
have been.
Yeah, I kind of knew what happened before I watched it, and I still very much enjoyed it.
Yeah, there was stuff there you wouldn't have expected, though, I'm sure.
And like I know there was like a TV remake of it,
They've
directed
done
by Kenny Ortega of all people, and I think it got like kind of mixed to negative
mixed
reviews.
response. They did like I know I did for Hairspray Live. They did a Rocky Horror Live, and it starred Victoria
It
Justice.
wasn't live. That was I think that
That
was a
wasn't
lot of the
live.
issue. No.
Oh, I see. They
So
promoted that as though it was like a fully live performance, so that's misleading on their part, not mine.
yeah, I think that a lot of the critique that they got about it was that they should have just done it as a live rendition
Yeah,
of as they had the other things, but it was a whole thing. I think
I thought it
they
was
basically.
okay. I
I
don't think
think
it was
they.
bad.
I mean, it was never going to be the original because I
No.
think that's the nature of a cult classic. But if you have enjoyed this type of cinema deep dive with ourselves, a bit of a film feast,
Film feast.
we'll think of a name for a segment.
Yeah, we'll have it.
It'll
We'll have it set up.
Cult Classics Corner.
The cult
Who knows?
corner. We're starting a cult. Would you
Yeah,
guys like
welcome
to
to the
join our
cult.
cult?
Well, thank you so much for listening. If you have made it this far into the podcast, please subscribe, give us a like, give us a follow. You can find
All
us
that fun stuff.
on the socials. I hope you have a wonderful week, my friends. We'll be back next time.
And you can't stop us. We'll be there.
We'll be there.
Can't do anything about it.
We'll never leave. We'll never stop.
We'll be flooding your subscription box